Welcome to Salacious TV, where we share some of the most salacious stories on the internet. Before we get into today's story, we humbly ask that you would like this video and subscribe to our channel. It doesn't cost you anything, but it really helps us out. My name is Liz. I am a 34-year-old housewife married to the love of my life, Tim. Tim and I met when I was a senior in college. I had broken up with my boyfriend of 3 years when I met this gorgeous young man with a figure that could make a woman tingle. Although a year younger than me, he is far more mature than his age, and we hit it off instantly. Our relationship became physical from the start. Okay, I'll admit it. Tim got into my undies on the first date. It had been 3 months since my breakup, and I had not been with anyone else in all that time. I had not gone that long without since I was 16, and I was really keyed up. After I graduated from college, I got hired by a company about 50 miles from my hometown and 40 miles from campus. Tim and I remained intimate and involved through his last year of college. When he graduated, he got hired at a firm in my hometown only a few months after graduation. As soon as he was secure in his new position, he asked me to marry him. We were married the following June. Having 2 good careers, we bought a modest home in a small bedroom community about halfway between the city I worked in and my hometown where Tim worked. It was about a 25-mile commute for both of us each morning, but at least it was all highways. At age 25, I had everything a woman could want: a wonderful and loving husband, a great career, and my own home. So why would I do what I'm about to tell you and risk it all? I don't know. It was like some primal urge that I never knew existed in me that suddenly got pushed to the surface by a stroke of fate. Once it was there, I just couldn't stop myself anymore. The need to satisfy that urge and the thrill associated with doing what I know to be wrong is just too powerful and has taken over my otherwise quiet and contented life. Tim's high energy level continued to be amazing. We enjoyed each other every morning before work, every evening before sleep, and sometimes 3 to 4 times per day on the weekends. But by the 3rd year of our marriage, things had become routine, and our bedroom sessions were dominated by one-position quickies. By age 28, I found myself already closing my eyes with my husband and fantasizing about former lovers in order to arrive. Not that I had that many former lovers. My first one was my high school boyfriend, Justin. I gave my purity to him when we were both 16. I was with Justin until we graduated. Then he dumped me. As you can imagine, I was devastated. That summer, I had a job at a local restaurant where I had a summer-long affair with an older, married man that was my manager. I never thought I would do anything like that, and I'm not proud of myself. But Matt was older, confident, and the attraction I felt to him felt different. Dare I say, even dangerous. Plus, I think that deep down I wanted to feel desired by someone else after being dumped by Justin, and Matt was the first opportunity that came my way. It ended when I started college and met Reggie, my college sweetheart. Then, at the beginning of our spring semester in our senior year, and after nearly 4 years, I discovered Reggie was blanking my best friend. I dumped him and my best friend. Then I met Tim, who became both my lover and my best friend. Right up until the summer of my 29th birthday, I had remained faithful to Tim. As a matter of fact, I have never cheated on any of my former lovers and have always considered myself a loyal and trustworthy person. Until now. During our 3rd Christmas as husband and wife, Tim's parents gave him a new digital video camera as a gift. We never had one of those before, as all of our vacations and family moments were captured on stills. So we were thrilled with the new toy and documented our entire holiday with it. During a weekend bedroom session before Valentine's Day, Tim made a request that quite frankly was no surprise. In fact, I was surprised he did not ask sooner. As we lay spent after our session, Tim looked over at me and said, "Liz, I know things have become a bit stale lately, and I have an idea about how we can spice things up for Valentine's Day." "Tim, our sex life is fine," I assured him. "In fact, it is more than fine. How many of our friends do you think do it twice every day and more on the weekends? Melissa told me recently that she's lucky if her and Kevin have the energy to do it more than once per week. You talk about our sex life with Melissa? Not always, but you know how we women gossip. Really? What do you tell her about us?" "Nothing much," I said with a teasing giggle. "Just that you are amazing in the sack and are well endowed." Tim just laughed and said, "I wonder how many fantasies Melissa has had about that." "Hey," I said and play punched him in the arm. Then we both laughed. So anyway, I prodded. What is your big idea? What do you think? He started. If we celebrate Valentine's Day by renting a room downtown at the Radisson with a hot tub and make a video with our new camera, it didn't immediately click what he was asking of me. Then it slowly began to dawn in my mind. You mean like a sex tape? Yes, he said, but only for us. I have to admit, the idea really intrigued me and turned me on. I was quiet for several minutes as I pondered the possibilities, and then I said, okay, but only if you promise me. I mean, really promise me that no one will ever see it except us. I promise, baby. Besides, I don't want anyone else to see that body of yours. You belong to me and me alone, and I ain't sharing you. Not even a video or picture. The idea got us so hot that we immediately had another steamy session. We both violently arrived and fell asleep satisfied holding each other. It was Saturday morning when we had this conversation, and by Saturday afternoon I found I could think of nothing else. That afternoon Tim left to work out at the gym for a couple of hours, and I decided to do some research on the upcoming adventure. So for the first time in my life, I sat down at the computer and began to surf steamy videos. I wanted to see the camera angles of how other amateurs made videos and which ones were successful and erotic and which ones were poor. I quickly learned that lighting is essential and a steady hand on the camera is also a necessity. I also learned that a tripod might come in handy, so I decided to get one for Tim. Also, close-ups were very popular and extremely erotic. I guess what made them so erotic was watching the most intimate and private body parts being merged between two people. The videos were so hot. Tim came home that afternoon to find his usually reserved wife surfing internet erotica and touching herself. Before he ever got in the shower, we were going at it again. This time with the images I had just viewed online in my mind. Valentine's Day was on Tuesday, so for the next 3 days, I continued my research by surfing the internet and doing some shopping for Tim's gifts. First, I got the tripod, and then I got a sexy new pink teddy for our first video performance. It was a one-piece, transparent lace with high-cut legs, low-cut top to reveal the amplage of my C-cup, and backless down to my rear where it became little more than a string running down the center of my bottom. When Valentine's Day rolled around, Tim had to work. But I took a vacation day to prepare. I was so hot and turned on as I thought about what was going to unfold that evening. I took a bubble bath and made sure that my body was ready for Tim and our video debut in every way. That night, we went into the city and had dinner at our favorite restaurant overlooking the river. Then we went to our hotel and checked in. The air was electric with our excitement. I gave Tim his first gift, which he opened with wide eyes like a child on Christmas. A tripod, he said, grinning ear to ear. For our little production, I said with a wink. Now you wait out here and I'll prepare your second gift. A second gift. I can hardly wait, he said while continuing to grin. While you wait, you might want to set that thing up and strip down to your undies. I'm not wearing any, he said with a smile. Oh my, I said while feeling my excitement growing. Then I slipped into the bathroom to slip on my new negligee. When I emerged from the bathroom, Tim was standing in the room wearing nothing but a smile. He was at full attention, and he had the camera pointed right at me. I flashed him my sexiest smile and walked seductively towards him and the camera. Before long, we were both garmentless, the teddy lying crumpled on the floor. I was on my back, in the lewdest position I had ever been in for my husband. We went at it with all of our actions being filmed with a video camera. We spent hours filming ourselves in various scenarios. Sometimes Tim held the camera. Sometimes I did, and sometimes we used the tripod. It was also incredible that I lost track of how many times we arrived. In the morning, we made one last video before we left. It was the most explosive session of them all. Once we edited it later, it turned out to be amazing. Making the video was the hottest thing we had ever done. And over the next several months, we would watch it to stoke the flames in the bedroom. But we never made another movie of ourselves, and by that summer, we had drifted back into our old familiar wham bam thank you ma'am sessions. A year and some months later, I had just turned 30, and maybe that is why I did what I did. But that was only part of it, I guess. Melissa and Kevin, the couple I mentioned before, are our next-door neighbors and our closest friends. They are 10 to 12 years older than Tim and me, and they have 2 children where Tim and I have none. Their oldest is their daughter Susan, who is currently attending the college where Tim and I went. Their youngest is their son Trevor. Trevor's birthday had come late, and he turned 19 years old 2 months before graduation when Melissa approached me and asked if I would mind tutoring him in math. He was struggling, and he needed to get that math grade up if he had any hopes of getting accepted into the university he was trying to get into. I was more than happy to help. Tim's firm often had him working late on Tuesday and Thursday nights, so those were the evenings that I would have Trevor over. I'd normally order us some pizza or Chinese food, and we'd get to work on his math. He is a really nice kid with a good head on his shoulders, and he worked really hard. He was tall and well-built. I'd say he was about 5 feet 10 inches tall, taller than me but not as tall as Tim. He had thick black hair and olive-colored skin that gives him that swarthy Mediterranean look. I really began to enjoy my time with Trevor. He is very intelligent, and I was easily able to help him understand some of the things that had him stumped where his math was concerned. Over several weeks, his grade had improved from a D+ to a B+. With 3 more weeks until graduation, I was sure I could help him pull out an A. Since the beginning of the year, Tim was traveling 1 week out of every month to work with a client in New York, leaving me home alone from Monday until Friday, and our intimacy level took a hit. By this time, Trevor and I had begun to form a bond that went beyond the tutoring. Each night after we worked, when we were finished, we would often talk about personal things. It was nothing too heavy at first. He just asked me about my academic life when I was in college, telling me about Lori, the little blonde he is dating, and about his relationship with his sister Susan and their parents. Sometimes he would stay, and he would talk to me until Tim came home from work. I have to admit that I enjoyed the attention of this handsome young man, and it wasn't long before I was wondering if he and Lori were having relations yet. I couldn't help but think what a lucky girl she was to be able to be satisfied by this handsome young stud. Now, I would never cheat on my husband, and I would never betray my best friend by sleeping with her son, but I did find myself occasionally closing my eyes and pretending it was Trevor on me and in me while I was with Tim. It was all innocent fun as long as it remained just a fantasy, and as long as I kept it completely to myself. 2 weeks to graduation, Melissa stopped over on Sunday evening just as Tim and I finished dinner. She had a favor to ask. Her mother-in-law had passed away unexpectedly, and they had to go to Michigan for the funeral. Trevor did not want to miss school at this critical time as he had worked so hard to get his grades up, and they wanted him to stay. Susan was still away at school, and Melissa was nervous about leaving Trevor alone. Melissa asked, "Tim and Liz, would you mind if he stayed with you while we are away?" "Why not?" Tim offered. "I have to leave for New York in the morning, and Liz could use the company." I was shocked and didn't know what to say. I had a variety of feelings going on inside of me. Part of me was thrilled to be able to spend an entire week with a handsome young stud. But at the same time, I chastised myself because I knew I had developed a sexual attraction towards him as he has become my secret fantasy. Finally, I swallowed hard and told myself that I'm an adult and I am in complete control of my body and my urges. I loved my husband, and I would never cheat on him. And besides, just because I found him attractive didn't mean he found an older woman like me sexually attractive, especially when he had a beautiful young girlfriend like Lori. So I smiled at Melissa and Tim and simply said, I would love to have the company. The next day, I said goodbye to my husband as he left for the airport and then went to the gym and run my various errands. I arrived home around 5:15 and found Trevor lounging in the den watching the sports report. He had let himself in using the key we had given to his mom the day before. "Hi, Mrs. G," he called from the den. "I have dinner almost ready." "Dinner?" I asked. "You cooked us dinner?" "Yeah, the salad is finished, and the steak is almost done," he replied. "I didn't know you could cook," I said. It was nice to come home to a hot meal. It was certainly a first for me. We ate Trevor's steak, then he helped me clear the dishes. He said preparing dinner and helping me around the house this week was the least he could do for all the help I had given him with his math. I told him that was nonsense as I was happy to have helped him with his grades. Besides, he did all the work. I just offered my guidance and assistance. But still he was grateful, and I was pleased to have such a helpful young man staying at the house with me for a week. After we cleaned up the kitchen, I left to take a shower, and Trevor went into the spare bedroom where he was sleeping to change out of his jeans and into the shorts and t-shirt he would be sleeping in. After my shower, I changed into a pair of silk short pajamas and met Trevor in the den where we put on a movie. Trevor lounged on the love seat and I took the couch. As he leaned back on the arm of the love seat with one foot on the floor and the other on the seat, I couldn't help but notice that I could see right up the leg of his loose-fitting shorts. I was shocked at the view. My pulse had quickened and I felt heat in my face as I became flushed. What was happening to me? Was I actually attracted to my best friend's son? I quickly tore my gaze away, but not before getting an eye full of him. What is wrong with me? I need to stop this train of thought at once. Eventually, the movie reached a love scene. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Trevor shifting uncomfortably in his seat. What I hadn't noticed is that I was shifting uncomfortably as well. As the actors enjoyed each other on screen, I couldn't help but think of that young man only 3 feet away. Stop it. I berated myself again, but there was no denying that I had become very excited. After the movie, still in a state of excitement, I lied to Trevor, told him I had an early meeting, and then said goodnight. He asked me if he could stay up a while longer watching TV, and I told him that was fine. Once safely in my bedroom, I ripped off my pajama shorts and went to work. I couldn't believe how excited I was and how quickly I arrived as I pictured Trevor in my mind. As soon as my excitement subsided, I drifted off into a deep and tranquil sleep. Tuesday found me heading out the door before Trevor headed off to catch his bus. I asked him if he'd like me to drop him at school on the way, but he said no as he was looking forward to seeing Lori on the bus. Again, I spent the day at the gym and running errands. When I got home, Trevor had made salmon, broccoli, and rice for dinner. I could get used to this. We ate, and being it was Tuesday, we began our lessons. By 7:30, we were close to finishing up, but we needed to find one equation and theorem to fit the last two problems Trevor was working on. We were searching online with mine and Tim's personal laptop we always had at home. I was beat and ready for my shower. So, I left Trevor to it and went into my bathroom and took my shower. Once I finished soaping, scrubbing, and rinsing, I washed my hair and then stood under the water taking care of myself. Once finished, I got out of the shower and walked into my bedroom, picked up the silk pajamas from the night before, and began to slide the shorts up over my bare legs. While pulling the top over my head, I thought I heard noises coming from the kitchen where I had left Trevor working at the table. I walked to the closed bedroom door and pressed an ear to the surface. I heard it again, more pronounced this time. It was definitely a moan of excitement. Was Trevor surfing that content on our computer? He never struck me as that type. I eased open the bedroom door and quietly walked down the hallway until it opened up on the kitchen. Trevor was sitting with his back to me, so he didn't know I was there. It was definitely the sound of two people having relations coming from the laptop. Standing on my tiptoes, I peered over his shoulder and confirmed my suspicions. Trevor was definitely watching a steamy movie. There was something about the sounds that the couple were making that seemed so familiar. That's when it hit me like a bolt of lightning. It struck me so hard my head began to spin and I thought I might pass out. Trevor was not watching any movie. He was watching our movie. The movie Tim and I made over a year ago. It was me I heard making those noises, and it was me on full display with my loving husband Tim. And Trevor was seeing it all. My face flushed. My heart rate went off the charts. Tim must have left a copy of our movie on the hard drive, and I never thought of it, and Trevor had found it. What do I do now? Do I slip back in my bedroom and pretend like I didn't see him watching it? Do I confront him and try to swear him to silence? Oh God, he saw me disrobed. He saw me spread eagle. He saw me and Tim arriving. Nothing was secret to him anymore, as he now knows me as few men have. What are you doing? I yelled louder than I intended to. Trevor slammed the laptop lid and stood so fast he knocked over the kitchen chair. Oh shoot. I'm so sorry. I found this on the computer by mistake. I swear I didn't see hardly any of it. I just found it a moment ago. I knew he was lying. The scene that he was watching was near the end. He had seen it all. But seeing him so flustered, probably even more than I was at that point, I didn't have the heart to beat him up any further. It's all right, Trevor, I said while attempting to calm myself down. I didn't realize that was on there. You should not have seen me. I mean that video. Tim and I made that on Valentine's Day more than a year ago, and we made it only for us. I'm so sorry, he began to say again. I swear, I'll never tell anyone about it. It's okay, Trevor, I reassured him, although I was far from being sure at this point. We need to forget this happened and forget you ever saw it. Absolutely, he said. I'm sorry, Mrs. G. I stood there silent, staring at the closed laptop on the table. You want to go to the den and maybe watch some TV before bed? I asked, trying to return the situation to normal. Trevor just nodded, so we moved into the den. We turned on the TV but found nothing on that was interesting to either of us. I think we both had too many other thoughts running through our minds. As we sat there, Trevor felt unusually quiet. The poor young man wouldn't even make eye contact. I had to say something to break the tension. "Okay, Trevor, we need to talk about this," I said as I cut off the television. Trevor shook his head, but he never looked up at me. "I know you saw the entire movie because where I walked in was near the end." "I am highly embarrassed, but I'm not angry with you, Trevor," I continued. "Thank you," he replied, and then finally looked me in the eye. "I'm a little embarrassed myself for watching it." "You must think I'm some kind of freak," I laughed and then said, "I think you are a freak." "What about me? I made that movie with my husband." "You have nothing to be ashamed of, Trevor. If anything, I am the one who should be ashamed. You should never have seen me like that, and it's my fault for not being more careful with the computer. I'm sorry if it upset you." That's what I said out loud. But the truth is, I wasn't ashamed at all. Deep down inside, I was happy that Trevor had seen me that way. Truth be told, the thought of him seeing me like that was turning me on. "Oh, I'm not upset, Mrs. G," Trevor said honestly. "I think you are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen, and seeing you like that is a fantasy I have had for a long time now." I let out a nervous laugh at that comment. I completely did not expect that, and was a little flattered by it. Also, his admission to having wanted to see me like that had me tingling. Trevor then spoke up. "Can I ask you a question?" "Sure." "I have often worried that the spark or the thrill would be gone for me and Lori after we've been together for a few years. Obviously, you and Mr. H keep the spark alive. How do you do it? Are you saying you and Lori are active?" I asked in earnest. Trevor shook his head and admitted they had been for 2 years now. "I won't lie to you and say it is always easy, Trevor. I wasn't ready to betray my husband by sharing intimate details of our lives. But I didn't want to give the poor boy a false impression of monogamy. The video you just saw was one of the ways we've tried to keep the spark alive." I was going to add that no one else was supposed to see it, but I didn't want to increase his guilt any further. It becomes routine, Trevor. It never goes back to being the way it is at the beginning. But that doesn't mean it becomes bad, only more comfortable and secure. It's also more loving and predictable. Oh God, if I could only believe those words. How often had I closed my eyes and fantasized about getting it in with a former partner just to arrive while Tim and I were being intimate. It was at this moment I realized I missed the thrill of getting it on with someone new, of seeing his eyes roam over me just moments before he touched my body. I miss the smell, sight, and sounds of lying with someone new. I guess that's the trade-off for a lifetime of security with the one you love. My conscious mind was now in turmoil at my next thoughts. My eyes involuntarily looked up and down Trevor's body. He was wearing a pair of basketball shorts and a simple, sleeveless t-shirt showing his long arms and stringy muscles. He was sitting casually on the love seat, leaning back and facing me. I had a compulsion to jump up, walk over to him, slam his body down on the love seat, and have my way with him. "Stop it," I said to myself again. But now my body was on fire with excitement. "So, do you and Lori enjoy each other?" I asked. He nodded, and I noticed he eyed my body the same way I had eyed his. "Have you ever been with anyone else?" I asked, and Trevor shook his head no. "Has she?" God, I was nosy. Again, he shook his head no. My gaze flicked up and down his body again, and his up and down mine. My pulse was up. My face went flush. My body was on fire. "I need to ask something else," I said. But before I could say another word, he blurted out, "Can I see you in that negligee you were wearing at the beginning of the video?" I smiled and said, "So you did see from the beginning then? You saw all of it?" He shook his head in admission and then looked down at my womanhood and then back into my eyes. Oh my goodness, I was so aroused. I looked down at him, and for the first time I realized he must be well endowed. "Stop it," I scolded myself again. "I'm sorry, Trevor," I began. "I cannot do that. It's wrong on so many levels. I'm married, your mom is my best friend, your family is our friends, you have a girlfriend, and I bought that lingerie for my husband's eyes only." "I'm sorry," he said. "I just thought, since we're keeping the video a secret, you might, not have a problem with another secret." As he said these things, he looked down at me again, then at my amplage, and then back into my eyes. Okay, I was no longer simply excited. I now wanted him. I wanted him bad. I wanted him hard. Stop it. I warned myself for the final time as I knew I didn't have much resistance left. Would you really do that to your girlfriend? I asked him, again returning his glances with my own. No one would ever know. I swear, Mrs. G. It's just that you look so damn good and Trevor never got out another word. Something inside of me just snapped. I jumped up, crossed the room, and was all over him. What are you doing? Trevor said in shocked surprise. Lift up your feet a second, I ordered as I ignored his question. He complied as I took his clothes off. You saw me totally undressed, so it's only fair. But he began, but I interrupted him and said, take off your shirt. Again, he complied. As he pulled the shirt over his head, I ripped my pajama top off over my head and threw it on the floor. Then I sent my pajama shorts to join his short shirt and my top on the floor. I was in the buff in front of my best friend's son, and that very thought was sending my urges and excitement over the edge. I was about to do the unthinkable and I could not wait. I was ready to be taken. Our clothes had barely hit the floor, Trevor was still just beginning to sit back, and I was there, climbing on him. He felt so good. It felt so good. I looked into his face and saw the look of desire and intense pleasure. We melted into each other. His skin felt so good on mine, and his mouth tasted sweet and warm. I am normally not vocal, but I couldn't help myself. I screamed, and before long we both arrived. Afterwards, we both laughed nervously. I sat up and looked him in the eyes, and we both smiled, but no words were spoken. No words were needed. Then I collapsed into him, placing my arms on either side of his body and my head on his shoulder. Oh God, he exclaimed. What you're doing is incredible. Yeah, I said. Do you like it? Oh yes. Please don't stop. I looked into his eyes with what must have been a wicked smile on my face. Then words came out of my mouth that I would never say. Even if I might be thinking them, I never say dirty things. But in that moment, I was so aroused that I was out of control. We arrived again, and again we shared a nervous laugh as we looked into each other's eyes. Trevor sat up. What the heck was that? He asked with a smile as he gazed into my eyes. Well, I began. Since we have to keep the fact that you saw my video a secret, then we might as well make the secret we keep a big one. Agreed. He laughed. Seriously? I said as I dropped my smile. We can never tell anyone we did this. I know, he said, and then he extended the pinky on his right hand to me. Pinky swear. I extended my pinky and locked it with his and repeated his words. Pinky swear. We cuddled for a while on the sofa before I began to fall asleep. Time for bed, I exclaimed. Can we sleep together? Trevor asked me. I don't think that is a good idea, Trevor. One thing will most likely lead to another, and I don't think I want to cheat on my husband in my marital bed. Crazy, I know. Why would I draw the line there? But I did. He accepted my reasoning and left for his room and I to mine. Just after 1:30 a.m., I heard my bedroom door open and then close again. I felt the sheets pull back and then a warm body climb in and spoon me. A moment later, I was cheating on my husband in my marital bed. Melissa and Kevin returned home, and my time enjoying Trevor came to an end. Tim returned home on Friday, and that night, I shagged him like I did the night we made our video. I know he had to have wondered what had gotten into me, but he didn't ask. After graduation, Trevor went off to college. But we made time for each other each year during spring break. He eventually graduated college and is planning to marry Lori in the spring. I know that what I did with Trevor was wrong, but it felt so right. I'd like to tell you I wouldn't do it again, but if I did, I would be lying to you. I am still with my husband, Tim, and he is the love of my life. Truth be told, I love him more now than I ever have, and my love for him grows more every day. But Trevor made me feel something I hadn't felt in years. Maybe he took me back to my high school and college days. I don't know. What I can tell you is that I cherish the time we spent together.